Hi guys, and welcome to Sofa Talk with Heike. And this is the second one we're doing, and I'm going through the topics that you guys have sent me. Now, this one is going to be on empath and being an empath and how to stay sane and how to not absorb. And I got that request a lot. So, for starters, what does it mean to be an empath? Well, empath means you are absorbing other people's emotions. So not just you picking it up on them, you kind of like, oh, so and so is in a bad mood, or so and so is having a bad day, but you actually can literally feel it. So it's kind of like you're kind of like in a good mood, or at least in an average mood. Somebody walks into your office, wherever, and all of a sudden you feel this overwhelming sense of complete like either sadness or fear. So where you were quite happily and quite aware of like, I'm good, I'm fine, and all of a sudden there comes this person and holds this energy and holds this emotion, and you're not just recognizing it, you're actually absorbing it, you're feeling it, you're completely taking it over. So empathy is the actual part of recognizing it. Being an empath means you're seeing it in such and feeling it in such extent and to such depth, and you are absorbing it. Now, there's actually quite a few different types of empath. Normally, when people say, oh, I'm an empath, or so and so is an empath, they refer to that one as in like, I'm absorbing other people's emotions, so I'm very, very aware of other people's emotions. But there's actually, well, they differentiate up to 15 different ones, but I'm just going to name a few. There's the intuitive empath. That means when people are around you, all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, so and so is having an issue with you. Just know things all of a sudden without there being any logical reason to do so. Or you turn around, all of a sudden you say like, how's your mom doing? And you're like, how did you know? She's just gotten like, so it's those kind of things that we just have some kind of knowing, and it's like you empathetically getting into that frequency of where that person's worry is from, but you have the knowledge of the trigger. So you're not getting the whole emotion of like, oh my God, I'm worried, but you're getting like, oh, something happened to your mom, for example. So, and we very often dismiss that, or when it's extreme, you get people when they just blur out things in front of you, which is not the right thing either. So because only one type of empath actually has to do with absorbing the feelings, and that is the emotional one. We also have a physical empath, and those are the ones that can literally pick up the same kind of physical symptoms and pain, and literally physical pain that you have. For example, when somebody next to you has a hell of a migraine, and all of a sudden you get like, you start getting like a bit of a headache. You were completely fine 2 seconds ago till this person started sitting there, and like 5 minutes in you kind of like get this pressure headache or whatever it is. You're absorbing the pain. Or like somebody has like, I don't know, an upset tummy or something, and then you start grumbling and you're feeling like a bit icky about it. So it is literally that very often, some of you might know like the medical medium, he can literally pick up, okay, this is so, this is so, that is so, so we need to look at that. And very often also like people that do like energy healing stuff can very clearly pick it up. I sometimes pick it up when I do like crossing overs or readings, when I just go like, oh, I get a heavy chest, or it's like, what's going on with your chest, the neck, it feels a little bit like, so, and this is kind of like, this is the physical empath, which really just means I'm more sensitive and I'm more tuned into picking that up. We all hold this information at any given time. It's kind of like fine tuning into those things, and some of us have the receptor set higher than others. It can also be learned, by the way. Then we also have it's called the geomantic. And yes, people like big names, it feels like, but it actually has to do with the earth and with the planet and with the cities, where people just can pick up. Some people kind of like, oh, something is coming. The world or the planet isn't happy, and then there's an earthquake somewhere, something like that. Or you work into a place and you just get like the feeling of like, oh, this is like, I don't know, a tragedy has happened here, or this was a very happy place, or like very lots of people pick it up like with the rainforest kind of thing. So anything to do like with the planet itself, not with the people on it, but the planet and the spaces and the city on it. Then we also have, plant empath. They're literally, they are the ones with the green thumbs. They're kind of like just know what the plants need or don't need. They're normally a lot surrounded by plants as well, because automatically we would surround ourselves with that. We get the same with animal empath as well. So there's quite a few. There's dream empath. There's all kind of things. But the one that we mostly refer to is the emotional empath. Now, what I also found quite a bit over the last few years is like, it's become, together with other words, quite kind of like nearly a fashion statement. And I do not mean it in a horrible way, and I do not take away from anybody who has very intense feelings. But I think you also need to be careful that with, like, for example, everybody's a narcissist nowadays. Well, some just really need to work on their attitude and conflict solution and need to take responsibility. Yes, there's a lot of narcissists out there, but it's very quickly thrown in. And the same is like with an empath, because a few times in the readings that I do as well, in the sessions that I do as well, I've experienced people saying, I'm like, okay, you need to look at this, and this is where you're in your own way, and this is like where you're making your life difficult, this is your pattern. And very often they say, oh, but I'm an empath, that's just how it is. I'm kind of like, no, you're avoiding your work. So it's like, yes, feeling deeply does not always mean that it is a thing, because very often when people say, oh, I'm an empath, it is seen as in like it's a burden to carry. It's a horrible thing. It's something I can't escape. But it's something. So, and I'm generalizing. But it's like, no, people, it isn't. It is actually something that is a gift. It becomes a bit of a burden when we don't know what to do with it and how to deal with that, and how to place it and which filter to put it through, like with anything. So being an empath is very often also confused with being trauma bonded or with being in a codependency. And it's nearly kind of like saying when we're in a victim mode, and I'm not saying purposely in a victim mode, but when we're trauma bonded or in an abusive kind of setup kind of thing, which is a form of trauma, we've become over aware of people around us because we constantly need to make sure that we are safe, that we learn to read others first, because it becomes our safety thing. So we oversensitive to other people's because it's our alarm safety net. So, and then we like, of course, we then absorb everything double and triple because it's our early warning system. Does not mean you're an empath. I said that is very often a trauma response because we are overstimulated, because we are in fight and flight, and then it's also a chemical, neurological thing as well. So not everything is empath, and being an empath is a gift. So, but now how do we go about it? Because people say, yeah, now, okay, if I'm an empath or not, either way, I have an issue with or find it difficult to deal with the absorbing of other people's emotions. And that is an issue. But very often where it gets confusing as well is like, how do we know what is what, and how can we go about that? So first of all, it starts with like, there's a few pointers. There would be a list like that. That's just gonna take about 6 or so for starters, because if I make this video an hour, then we switch off. But you can feel free to ask questions afterwards. So the first thing is like when we are in a situation, so empaths do literally feel overwhelmed very quickly when there's lots of people around. They normally don't like crowds. They are normally naturally born like kind of like healers, nurturers, balance bringers. They want harmony. They come from a good place. They have the tendency to put others before them. They're normally way too keen to please others. They normally find it hard to say no. Because this is the empathy, it's like, because they can feel how the others are feeling, and that's why they want them to be in a better place, and very often at the detriment of that person, of ourselves in this case. So first thing is like, how do I know what's mine, and how do I know what's the other person's? So this is why we need to pay a bit of attention. It's like, so the number one is like, name it, because you need to know whose it is. So if I'm sitting in my office or in my lounge, it doesn't matter where we are, and I'm kind of like, I'm actually in a good space, I'm okay, I'm fine. And all of a sudden, let's say my partner walks in, and 5 minutes later I feel like, ooh, I just want to bite somebody's head off. This is like, maybe just need to stop for a second, just like hold it. Nothing happened in the last 5 minutes that would cause me to have that response. So is it mine? Can I place it? Can I not place it? No, it's not mine. So it must be someone. So what happened in the last 5 minutes? That person entered. So it must be that person. So now I know, okay, that kind of feeling is valid, because otherwise it wouldn't be there. It needs to belong to somebody, but it ain't mine. So step one is name it. So it's like, I was okay and now I'm angry, or I was happy and now I feel depressed. So we need to know what it is that we have the comparison, that there was a shift. So the second one then is, once we know, like, okay, whose it is, then it's also talk about it, say it loud. So again, somebody, I now feel like, okay, I was okay and now I feel aggro, say it loud, because the next thing we do, we assume. So I assume he is now angry and he is aggro, and if I don't, and assumptions are always buggers, because they always run off with our words, always with the negative stuff, never with positive or even neutrals. Assumptions are buggers and based on lies, 90%. So now I think like, oh, what did I do? Or what is like, or maybe something went wrong here. And if I ask him or her now, they're then gonna explode at this. So we go off and we don't say it, but we're now accelerating a feeling that wasn't even ours to start with. Not only are we owning it, but we're accelerating it, and completely then we get the physical response, the blood pressure goes up, and it most likely gonna end up in a sleepless night. Plus, being an empath means we're more prone to anxiety and depression because we don't bottle. So in this case, number two is name it. So then saying, okay, I was good, now I'm aggro. It's kind of like saying like, hey, John, my house name is John. Okay, John, you're not having a good day because I'm picking up an angry vibe. Are you okay? What's going on? So in this case, what I can say is like, I recognize this energy and I know it's not mine, so it must be yours. So can I assist you in any way? Are you even aware of it, or did it run away with you as well? And with that, it also brings down the velocity, because it's now being acknowledged. It's not internal, it's now external. And with that, we can now start dealing with it. And then it's either like, oh, was I? No, sorry, it was just in thoughts. Or it's like, yeah, I'm really wondering about that. Or like, I'm angry about that. And then it can either be dissolved, or it can sometimes just saying it loud. And sometimes people just want to be heard. You don't have to fix it, and you don't have to solve it, and you don't have to do anything. They just want to be heard, and it just needs to get out of the system. And then half of the time it's like, oh, okay, now that I said it loud, it's actually not that bad. It's like feeling better, awesome. And then we're not sitting and accelerating with it as well. So number one, name it and determine whose it is. Secondly, verbalize it, communicate it, and put it out there. Ask and be curious about it. It's kind of like, and it also shows that you have interest. So because then what normally happens when we feel overwhelmed with somebody else's emotions, we go like, we kind of like try to deal with it. We go then very often into flight mode, and we go like, oh my god, what do I do with it? And I don't want to trigger people even more, and so on, because we're the peace bringers. It doesn't bring peace. It just moves to war. So so there we are. Would name it, speak about it, and if you don't know whose it is, the other person will never know, and we go in circles. The other one is as well is like self-awareness, which is pretty much the crux of it, with another one, which is my favorite, which comes up right now. Self-awareness is like, if I don't know what's mine, I will not know what is somebody else's. And nowadays we're so busy doing everything but spending time with ourselves. It's like nearly half the people that are, not half people, quite a few people that I know, I actually don't know what to do with themselves when they're not busy. It's like they're not aware of them, like, how do I feel right now? Because they're always ahead of time. They're planning this, they're doing that, they're organizing this, they remind themselves of that, and so they're always ahead of time. And in order to be aware, we need to be right here, right now. And awareness is in our senses. So every now and then, and if you have to set a reminder on your phone that it beeps like every 4 hours or so for starters, and say, how do I feel? What do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? Because the senses are in the here and the now. And you can't be in two time spaces as well. So the moment you get into your senses, it's kind of like you can check in with yourself. Where am I at this very moment, in this time of being? because you can't check into our senses and be ahead, because our senses can only give us the feedback right now. So if I'm like, right now I'm actually in a good space, I'm a bit aggravated or a bit nervous or I'm a bit reluctant or whatever, okay, then okay, that's mine. And we don't need to over judge it. This is the thing, the judgment, the feelings themselves are not the problem. How we judge it is the problem. Everything is neutral till we attach something to it. So me realizing it, say, okay, I'm maybe a bit restless right now. Okay, it's like, okay, I'm restless. Okay, do I want to be restless? No. Does it suit me? No. Is it justified? No. So, okay, I can just detach that. I can just go, okay, what can I do? What brings me the opposite? So it becomes then something that is not holding that weight, because what we then normally do is, I'm restless. Why am I restless? I shouldn't be restless, and now I'm restless again. Why don't I have that under control? And it's like, I obviously haven't done this. I must have forgotten something. Where am I? And off we go again, and we get completely mind-based instead of simply saying, yes, I'm restless. So maybe I should just have a 2-minute break or whatever it is, and just say, but why am I restless? So it's just simply like, look at it like at an onlooker. It's like, oh, I found a feeling. It says restless. Where does it come from? Where do you go? Where do you belong? Where do I want you? And then put it here or there. And this is like, just, it is a habit. How we react to it is a habit. So when we know who we are, it's much easier to determine what feeling is someone else's. So when I know I'm good, I just checked in 10 minutes ago, and now all of a sudden it's that, it's like, okay, whose is this? And people around me are quite used to it. Like I'd say, like, okay, I'm picking up who's agitated here. So it's kind of like, so, which is simply a matter like, I acknowledge that what's going on. Can we assist? Are you okay? Are you not? Okay, cool. It's not always a big discussion. It's simply acknowledging. So if you know where you are, it's easier to acknowledge where others are. And then it's a great thing, because it can be such a great catalyst to make other people aware, because you picking that up makes you a mirror. Doesn't make you superior or anything like that. It's simply like, I picked that up, whose is it? It's like lost and found. This is yours, that you know you even have it. And this is like, oh no, I don't want it. Well, then let's get rid of it. So it's the attachments, and this is simply that. To know yourself, then it's easier to know what's not yours. Also, what would the whole ground yourself, and grounding literally is also like earthing. Grounding is a matter of coming into your body, into the here and into the now. And make it a habit. It should be a habit like brushing your teeth. I hope you brush your teeth. So, so in the morning in the shower, for example, it's like as the water runs like over you, simply just take a second again, check in with yourself. Like, I'm okay, I'm fine. Don't go like, oh, I need to feed the dogs, I need to do this and I need to do this. No, just be in the shower, feel the water. Again, the senses, feel the water running down in you, and go like, okay, for today, I set the intent. This is the kind of day that I'm having. Yeah, set the intent for the day, because otherwise you're just going to have any day. You might just as well put the order in. And say, with the water that's running down, I'm completely connected, and I decide I'm going to allow those kind of feelings, will have those kind of experiences, and I'm protected, and call in your angels and guardians, whoever, whichever way you want to work. But at the same time, also as the water runs over you, imagine it as being kind of like a armored suit. And that means like, I will be having my stuff I'm dealing with, and I will still acknowledge other stuff, and I will still feel pick up what other people feel or what's going on, but I will not let it get through my armor. So I will see it, and then I can say, okay, I want to do this or that with it, but I will not have to absorb, because then again, it is a gift. The moment I absorb it, then it gets confusing. Recognizing it is wonderful, because it allows you to help and assist and bring awareness and all of that, which is a fabulous thing. So like, make this like a morning routine, and also in the evening do the same thing again, or do breathing, do guided meditations, check in with your senses, and all those kind of things. That is our job. And especially like when we think we are empath or have that is our priority. And this is also where then the next point comes, like grounding is part of self-care and self-awareness. And because empaths have the tendency to put everybody else before themselves, we nearly look at it then as a reward system. Once I've seen to the kids, the dogs, the boss, the neighbors, the stray cats, and Tom, Dick, and Harry down the road. Once I've done all of that, and I prep the lunches in the school, and whatever, if I have 5 minutes, I might take 5 minutes for myself. So we are dealing with ourselves as it being a reward system. Hell no, it's not the reward system. That's the fuel in your tank. It's kind of like saying I want to do a road trip from Durban to Joburg, but I'm only going to fill petrol when I get there. So where we feed everyone else, and this is our first priority, feeding us now becomes a reward system. And that's back to front. This is why we're exhausted. That's why we get overloaded. That's why we get tired. That's why we have low energy. This is why we more prone to depression and anxiety kind of thing, because we fuel others and we don't fuel ourselves. So this is like self-care and self-awareness is our fuel. That's basic necessity. That's basic maintenance. It's not a reward system. And it's not just like what time out. It is like, it also goes with, yes, what's a time out? You might most likely need more being an empath in order to come down from absorbing all of that. But also regarding food, regarding some exercises, 90% of people that tend to be empath have digestive issues because, and then all of a sudden they have all kind of intolerances which they never had before in their life. So what that means though is every feeling runs here through the solar plexus, and that the solar plexus also runs the digestive system. So an overload of emotions, it literally says it's too much for me to digest. With that, the enzymes and the acid levels change. With that, we can't eat properly. We have different eating patterns because we don't nourish ourselves, we nourish others. And nourishing is mind, body, and soul. It's literally food. It's literally it's exercise, it's time, it's attention. That's what nourishing is. And we do that to others, but not ourselves. So get that attached. And again, this is us attaching, allocating time. Also, when you're out and about, you don't really want to be around people. What you can do is also like visualize like a glass wall or a glass bubble. Like let's say you have to go to, or you want to go to a mall or whatever. And, it's going to be draining simply because there's so many people. It's kind of like, imagine like a glass wall in front of you, or like a whole glass bubble where, like, again, you can see it, you can pick things up, but you're not letting it. It's the same kind of like the armor thing that comes with that. And now it's also when you feel you have absorbed something from someone else, that's okay. Once it's there, it's there. There's no use like beating yourself up over. Still acknowledge it, hand it over to whoever, and then release it. And that can be done in many different ways. With breathing, it can be done with literally also like go barefoot outside, grounding. Quite a few gemstones help as well. Gemstones is one for another day. Also literally things like stomping your feet to just like realign. You can do guided meditations as well. Some people, if you're more a visual person, you can literally go like see it like everything that's not just running down you, or like leaves going down the river. Just like literally, if you're more visual person, visualize it. If you're more physical person, then well, if you have to punch a punching bag, then punch a punching bag. If you want to scream in your pillow, scream in your pillow, but release, get it out of the system. Empaths are emotional hoarders because they don't want to upset the outside world, and they don't want to, like you said, it just goes in, it doesn't come out. So whatever works for you, do it. If it's running around the block, and no, as much as it's tempting, it's not having a bottle of wine because it's not helping. And I do like a glass of wine too, but in this case with the release, it ain't helping because it literally, what does alcohol do? It bottles. So once you've done all that work in your good place, then you can have a glass if you want to. But the other crux thing, and I don't know if it's number 5, 6, or 7 because I forgot to count, is boundaries. An empath without boundaries is his own biggest enemy. And because it's literally saying, when I say to people who have some boundaries, challenges, or are empath, I said, you need to work on your boundaries. And they're like, yeah, I know, but I'm like, what, you don't want to upset anybody? Yeah, I don't like conflict. And the thing is, we do have conflict because we do not have the boundaries. Because if the boundaries are clear, it doesn't become conflict. It is conflict because it was unspoken stuff. It was something that is important to me that I don't say to you or to whomever, but I expect a certain, or I hope you will somehow know that I need this, want that, need to be treated like that, don't want this, need that. So I'm setting you up somehow, even though it's not my intent, but you are doomed to walk into something. And then you do that. It's like, oh, obviously he doesn't know me, or she doesn't know me well enough to do this, that. And the next thing I run off with my assumption, and then with my self-esteem stuff, and so on and so on. And this is simply because I said, listen, when you just swore me like a trooper, this is not going down well with me. So if you wouldn't mind changing your language, we can talk about stuff, but this is not the rules of engagement that I'm happy with. So now what happens is two things. Firstly, you've been very clear on what is okay for you and what isn't. And now if that person does it again, it's a clear choice. And then it is saying like, I don't care what you want because I want that. Now, if that person swears you and you don't say that, then it's simply, you're not giving that person a choice. So me now saying, listen, I don't like you swearing like a trooper when you speak to me. So if you wouldn't mind using different vocabulary, that person might respond with like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm just so used to doing that, and attach it, because the intent was never to be insulting to me, but it might be completely okay with other people that she speaks to. So this is like, if I don't put it out, I'm setting people up. So boundaries just simply means this is the space, boundaries is the space where I can honor you and myself at the same time. Not having boundaries simply means I don't honor myself enough in order to put it out there. And with that, I set you up to overstep it. And then very often we feel like the victims. And of course, because they have to walk into it. I'm not saying suits you right, but it is a back to front thing. And then it becomes very often a conflict because we kept quiet for so long, we accommodated it for so long, and we just like didn't say anything, and then when it does come to a point that sooner or later we do something, then a year down the line or whatever, it's like, but why didn't you say that a year ago? And then it becomes an issue. Now all of a sudden, well, it was there all along, you just didn't know about it. So this is like, so let's not get caught in that. Boundaries is nothing else but rules of engagement, and it honors you. And quite frankly, if the person around you that you wanting to put some boundaries out and needs to put some boundaries out is not going to accept that or doesn't like it, that person is totally underqualified to be in your space. So there is no over accommodating for that, because this is also what's happening is like empaths are the main target for every kind of narcissist, because they're the endless givers. And narcissists are the endless takers. And believe me, one thing that narcissists are really, really, really allergic to is boundaries. So that will already rule a whole big group of people out. But ultimately what it is, like being an empath is a gift. But we need to get our boundary game up, and we need to check in with who we are, that we know where we are, in order to realize whose feeling it is. And then simply saying like, hey, whose is this? What do you want to do with it? And throw the ball back. Don't catch every ball. If you catch it, then only to identify and put it back. Do not collect them. So empath really means I've got or in this case, the emotional empath means I have the wonderful ability to be aware of where you're at. It's not my job to fix it for you. It's not my job to heal it for you. It's my job to be the mirror. This is an empath job. But we then feel responsible, and we want to fix it, and we want to nurture it, and we want to pamper it, and we want to buffer it. And that's then where it becomes a bit pear-shaped. So be an empath, be proudly an empath. Being an empath is not a burden unless we make it that way. Being an empath is a gift. And own it and say it. It's like an empath are really good bullshit detectors as well. So, but we very often don't feel we can say it loud. We feel it very clearly, but then we don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't know who's has an apple cart anyway nowadays, but nobody wants to upset it. So speak up, name it, communicate. So being an empath is a gift. Own it. It's wonderful. But put boundaries in. Know who you are. That you know where you end and the other one starts. And it's not your job to save the world. It's your job to know you. And if you can assist others with being a mirror, that's great, but they need to do their work. Let's love and luck always. And if you have some questions, put it at the bottom of the video. And I will see you around, and you do you, and learn to say no and put that boundary game down. Let's have love.